revealed, inspiring employee, saves millionaire with amazing quick thinking during heart attack. The evening was glittering with diamond-studded laughter and the clinking of crystal glasses at the Grand Oak Hotel. Jake, a humble maintenance worker, scampered along corridors, ensuring everything sparkled for the charity gala. But amidst the cheers, his thoughts drifted to his family, his single mother working 2 jobs, and his younger sister dreaming of a better life. Tonight, he hoped for something to change. Suddenly, the room erupted with panic. Jake's heart raced as he witnessed Mr. Thompson, the renowned millionaire and philanthropist, crumple like a cheap suit onto the polished floor, a collective gasp reverberating through the crowd. Without missing a beat, Jake felt his grandfather's lessons wash over him like a calm wave. "Help those in need," he could hear him say, clear as day. That was the moment he was born for. He dashed forward, adrenaline surging through his chest as the guests stood paralyzed in disbelief. The bitter whispers clouded his ears. He could hear them questioning him, a maintenance worker, claiming no authority to save the esteemed man. As he knelt beside Mr. Thompson, Jake gritted his teeth, clenched his fists, and began performing CPR, each push filled with urgency, fueled by hope. Time blurred. The countdown in his mind stretched. 1 push, 2 pushes, and the gasps around him rose with every passing second. Skepticism cloaked him like a shadow. He imagined their thoughts. He's just a maintenance guy. What does he know? But he pressed on, refusing to falter, every ounce of training he learned from the heartwarming simplicity of his upbringing driving him to fight. Come on, he urged under his breath, his fingers trembling against Thompson's body. How could they not see? The disparity between him and the elite crowd felt like a chasm, their glitz softened by their ignorance, while he fought with every beat of his heart. But finally, the moment arrived. Mr. Thompson gasped awake, the miracle of survival igniting gasps and cheers among the onlookers. Yet, as applause erupted, Jake felt a hollow ache in his chest. In that fleeting moment of glory, the cheers were not for him, but for Mr. Thompson, his effort eclipsed by wealth and prestige. He was just a shadow among the stars. Each smile from the guests seemed to mock him, reflecting the gulf between his world and theirs, and deep down he feared he would remain invisible. Days passed in a blur of routine repairs and unspoken dreams. He watched as his sister flipped through her school books, her ambitions trapped behind the walls of their financially strained home. Jake felt the weight of disappointment resting heavy on his shoulders. But he didn't know that Mr. Thompson would soon be seeking him out, driven by gratitude and an inkling of curiosity to bridge the gap between their worlds. As Mr. Thompson stepped into Jake's modest home, lights flickering, walls bare, the contrast of their realities stood glaringly apparent. A meeting born from life and death unraveling into an unexpected friendship. But as their bond strengthened, unspoken barriers remained. A looming question: could they truly overcome their differences, or would the skepticism of society keep them apart? The journey ahead was uncertain, challenges looming like dark clouds on the horizon. Jake pondered. Could he find a way to reframe his family's fate without losing himself? As hope flickered on the edge of possibility, he felt a surge of resolve strengthen within. The sun peeked through Jake's tattered curtains, transforming the simple room into a warm embrace, but the morning light did little to dispel the weight on his shoulders. He stirred awake to the familiar sound of his mother typing away on her old laptop in the next room, her fingers dancing over the keys, creating fragments of hope from the humdrum of their everyday struggles. The idea of an unexpected friendship with Mr. Thompson lingered like morning mist, elusive but tantalizing. As Jake prepared for another day, the memory of Mr. Thompson's grateful smile compelled him to think beyond the confines of his current existence. The chaotic life they led didn't have to define them. Jake's heart quickened at the thought. What if this was the start of something monumental, something that could lift his family from the burdens they carried? He stepped outside to breathe in the crisp morning air. The neighborhood felt different, almost electric, as he traversed cracked pavement toward the maintenance shed where he worked. People strolled leisurely, heads high, and their laughter outweighed the reminders of a life he hoped to transcend. It was as if the world was waiting for something. A shift, a change, a spark. Later that day, he received a call that sent ripples through his chest. It was Mr. Thompson, his voice warm and inviting as he suggested they meet for coffee. Jake could hardly believe what he heard. The powerful millionaire wanted to buy him a cup of coffee. The thought made his heart race. It felt unreal. A chapter straight out of a fairy tale. What kind of man was Mr. Thompson beneath all the wealth and success? Was he truly interested in understanding Jake's world, or would it ultimately become another moment that just reinforced the divide? Yet, as he stood in front of the small cafe they agreed upon, nerves twisted in his stomach. He approached the entrance and inhaled deeply. The cozy interior bustled with life, and he spotted Mr. Thompson at a corner table, grinning like a kid at Christmas. His presence was commanding, yet open, radiating a warmth that made Jake feel just a little less invisible. "Jake," Mr. Thompson called, waving him over. "You made it. I wasn't sure if you'd come." Jake forced a smile, each step bringing a mix of excitement and anxiety. "Thanks for inviting me, sir. I appreciate it." "Please, call me Benjamin," Mr. Thompson replied, gesturing for him to sit. "You deserve to be treated like anyone else, especially after what you did at the gala." Jake hesitated, unsure of how to navigate the conversation. Would they speak about the incident? Could he share his struggles? Instead, Benjamin began sharing stories of the challenges he faced building his empire. The man's honesty cut through Jake's apprehension, revealing layers of his own vulnerabilities. But even as they talked, Jake sensed an underlying struggle. Benjamin spoke about the constant pressure, the expectations tied to his name, the way people approached him differently because of his status. Despite the wealth, Jake saw a man who wore his own burdens, much like he did. As they delved deeper into their backgrounds, Jake's spirit was mixed with hope and despair. Would this relationship become the bridge that transformed their lives? Or would it expose only the unyielding truths of societal boundaries? Just then, a call interrupted their moment, a muted ring from Benjamin's phone. His expression shifted, urgency flashing in his eyes. "I'm so sorry, Jake. I need to take this. Can we pause for just a minute?" Jake nodded, heart racing, his thoughts swirling. Was this the moment things began to fall apart, or merely a bump in a road leading somewhere brighter? As Benjamin stepped outside to take the call, Jake couldn't shake the feeling of waiting for clarity, direction. Something to solidify this budding friendship that had the power to change everything. Hope flickered in his chest, but uncertainty loomed like a shadow. And then, just as he took a breath, he caught sight of Benjamin speaking briskly on the phone, a sense of urgency rippling through his movements. Something was off. Was this call a turning point? What awaited Jake when Benjamin returned? Jake's heart skipped a beat as he watched Benjamin pace outside the cafe, a frown etched across his brow. The vibrant atmosphere inside began to dim, replaced by a flood of uncertainty. Thoughts raced through Jake's mind. What if this was it? The moment that defined their relationship? The man had come to him with open arms, eager to share his world. But now he seemed caught in some unseen turmoil. He leaned back in his chair, trying to bring his focus back to the bustling cafe around him. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee and sweet pastries filled the air, yet it did little to comfort him. Laughter echoed from the tables filled with friends and families, oblivious to the internal storm brewing in Jake's heart. He felt like a fish out of water, surrounded by joy while wrestling with a knot of anxiety. He glanced out the window again, hoping to catch a glimpse of Benjamin's expression, but it was hidden in the shadow of a thick oak tree. Anticipation tightened his chest. Was it merely a business call, or something more profound? Jake couldn't shake the feeling that this conversation was pivotal. Moments felt like hours as he waited, the clinking of cups and chatter fading into a dull buzz. Each second was a reminder of how fragile their connection was. Even with all the initial openness, there was still a vast chasm of experience that separated them. Jake knew he needed something more, something deeper than pleasantries and shared stories. And then, finally, Benjamin returned, his face less tense but still marked by the traces of urgency. Jake sat up straight, eyes wide, waiting for an explanation. He immediately sensed that whatever had transpired outside was not merely a casual phone call. "I'm really sorry about that," Benjamin said, sliding back into his chair. His voice was steadier now, with an underlying hint of relief. "It was my assistant. There was an incident at one of our projects, and I had to handle it." Jake's stomach twisted at the thought of the powerful man needing to respond to chaos. "An incident? Is everything okay?" "Yeah, fortunately, it was just a minor issue. But it reminded me how unpredictable everything can be," Benjamin replied, shaking his head slightly. He looked at Jake, his eyes softer now, as if he finally saw the boy who existed beneath the layers of nerves. "It's easy to get so caught up in this world thinking we have control over everything, but sometimes we just don't." Jake nodded slowly, relating to that uncertainty. His life had been a series of unpredictable moments, each one shaping who he was. "I can understand that. Things often spiral out of control in the blink of an eye." Benjamin's expression shifted again, something flickering behind his eyes as he leaned in closer. "I actually wanted to talk to you about that, about how to manage those moments. You see, these experiences have taught me that the most valuable connections come from vulnerability." Jake's heart raced at the sincerity in Benjamin's voice. Was this what he'd been waiting for? A chance to truly connect and understand one another? He wanted to share his own vulnerabilities, the struggles that felt constant in his own life. Could this be the beginning of a profound friendship? Just as he opened his mouth to respond, a loud commotion erupted from outside, and the cafe door swung open. A woman burst in, her face pale and frantic. "Help! Someone's collapsed outside. Please, we need a doctor." Jake's heart dropped. The moment he'd just begun to unfold was now overshadowed by a real emergency. He exchanged glances with Benjamin, both of their expressions suddenly serious. "Let's go," Benjamin said, standing up sharply, an instinctual urgency in his voice. Jake followed, feeling a rush of adrenaline as they pushed past the bustling crowd toward the door, both of them instinctively ready to face whatever awaited them outside. What awaited them might not only challenge their growing bond, but possibly forever alter both their lives. Would they rise to the occasion together, or would this moment prove too much? The chaos outside was almost blinding. Jake blinked against the bright afternoon sun, the sudden shift from the cafe's cozy atmosphere disorienting. Benjamin was already moving, his steps swift and purposeful, as they emerged onto the sidewalk. A small crowd had gathered, their murmurs mixing with the distant sounds of sirens. Jake's heart raced as he scanned the scene. There, sprawled on the pavement, was a man in a suit, his face pale and contorted in pain. Around him, people were fidgeting, unsure of what to do. A woman was kneeling beside him, her hands trembling as she checked for a pulse. "Stay back!" someone shouted, trying to manage the crowd. Benjamin stepped forward, instinct kicking in. "I'm a doctor," he called out, voice cutting through the noise. Jake felt a jolt of pride, admiration roiling inside him. Witnessing Benjamin's determination to help was intoxicating. But what could Jake do? He wasn't trained for emergencies. He wanted to support Benjamin, but the fear of freezing up clawed at him. As Benjamin crouched next to the man, Jake took a deep breath, pushing through the gawkers until he reached Benjamin's side. "What do you need me to do?" he asked, his voice shaking slightly. "Call 911, Benjamin ordered, glancing up for a split second, then returning his attention to the patient. "And lift his legs, get blood flowing back to his heart." Jake nodded, grateful for the clarity of purpose. He moved instinctively, helping the woman elevate the man's legs while hoping he wouldn't mess things up. The panic thrummed like a live wire. Minutes ticked by like hours, but Jake focused on the rhythm of his breath and the steady voice of Benjamin, who was directing the bystanders to clear space. "Give him air. Someone get a jacket or something to prop his head. Stay calm." The woman beside him started performing chest compressions, and Jake's stomach churned as the man's breathing grew fainter. He glanced at Benjamin, whose brow was furrowed with concentration, hands steady against the man's chest. "You're gonna be okay," Benjamin urged, though his own voice trembled just slightly. "Help is on the way." Jake had never seen Benjamin like this, so authoritative, so alive in purpose. It was both inspiring and terrifying. The man's eyes fluttered open for a moment, filled with panic that mirrored Jake's own. A cacophony of sirens grew louder in the distance, the wail a distorted promise of help. But for now, it was just Benjamin and Jake, the air charged with an urgency that transcended their earlier conversation. As a paramedic vehicle screeched to a stop, Jake stepped back slightly, looking at Benjamin in awe. "You really are a lifesaver," he said, voice low as two medics rushed towards them, quickly assessing the situation. Benjamin met Jake's gaze, his expression shifting from focused to lightened, though his brow still furrowed with concern. "Just doing what I can," he replied, brushing his hair back. The tension between them shifted, their earlier moment of vulnerability morphing into something electric, binding them together in a shared experience of chaos. But the commotion around them was still unraveling, and as the paramedics took charge, Jake felt his heart slow, the adrenaline beginning to drain. He thought back to all the words he wanted to share, the connection they had been on the verge of discovering. "We should talk after this," Benjamin said, catching Jake's eye amid the controlled chaos. There was something unspoken, a promise forming in that simple statement. Jake nodded. They would talk. Together, they could break through their barriers. But as the paramedics loaded the man into the ambulance, something caught Jake's eye. An envelope slipping from the man's pocket, fluttering in the wind, unnoticed. "What was that?" he whispered, heart racing again as it landed on the pavement. The tension crackled again. What did it mean? What had just begun to unfold between him and Benjamin might be more tangled than they anticipated. Jake felt a thump in his chest, uncertain whether it was excitement or dread. The envelope lay there, fluttering gently against the pavement, almost beckoning him to take it. He shot a glance at Benjamin, who was engrossed in the medic's efforts to stabilize the man. "Stay here," Jake murmured to himself, his feet moving before he had fully processed the thought. He stepped away from the surrounding chaos, reaching for the envelope, its dull brown paper stark against the concrete. As he picked it up, he felt the weight of its contents, a folded piece of paper. It seemed so ordinary, yet it felt significant in this moment, marked by urgency and fear. He glanced back at Benjamin, whose focus was still on the patient, and breathed deeply. The world around him had shrunk. Everything else faded into a blur. He opened the envelope carefully, revealing a single sheet inside. His heart raced as he unfolded it. The handwriting was scrawled but legible, almost frantic. It read, "In case of emergency, contact my brother. His number is on the back. He needs to know." Jake turned the paper over, finding another series of numbers. He could barely comprehend the meaning. This was real. A life depended on a conversation he might initiate with a stranger's family. But time was fleeting, and the urgency was palpable. "What are you doing?" a voice called out, snapping him back to reality. A paramedic stood nearby, watching him with cautious eyes. "Just found this," Jake stammered, holding up the envelope. The medic stepped closer. "Is that a personal item? We should keep it safe for the family." "Right," Jake replied, handing it over reluctantly. The adrenaline still coursed through his veins as he watched the medic tuck the envelope into their bag. He turned and ran back towards Benjamin, whose professionalism had transformed the chaotic scene into something manageable. The crowd began to thin as people realized the situation was under control. As the last of the medical team finished their work, Benjamin finally stood, wiping his hands on his scrubs, the edges of his mouth pulling into a weary smile. "What did you find?" he asked, looking curiously at the way Jake was vibrating with energy. "I think it might be important," Jake said, briefly explaining about the envelope and what it contained. The admiration in Benjamin's eyes shifted into concern. "That brother might never have known otherwise," Benjamin said softly. "You did well, Jake." The compliment sent warmth through Jake's chest. The situation had changed, and so had something between them. They were both standing on the brink of something deeper after this moment. But Jake hesitated. "So, after this, about talking." "I really want to," Benjamin replied instantly. "But I need to process all of this first. You get that, right?" "Of course," Jake said, spiraling in a mix of disappointment and understanding. There was weight to their experiences, and it was a lot to take in. Suddenly, they heard shouting from the direction of the ambulance. A man burst through the crowd, a younger guy with panic in his eyes racing towards them. "Where's my brother?" he shouted as he spotted the paramedics. Jake and Benjamin exchanged a look, lamenting the gravity of the moment. The urgent energy shifted again as the man approached, a desperate plea evident in his features. What would happen next? Jake felt that twist in his gut, the urgency building once more. The real story was unfolding, and they were right in the middle of it. Would answers finally emerge, or would they just get swallowed by the chaos that was creeping back in? The younger man burst through the crowd with a wild look in his eyes. Jake's heart raced as he took in the sight. His clothes were rumpled, his hair tousled like he had just sprinted a mile. Fear radiated off him like a heat wave. "Where is he?" the man repeated, his voice louder, desperate enough to draw every eye in the vicinity. Ben's face tightened, the familiar lines of worry etching deeper as he stepped forward to address the frantic brother. "We're doing everything we can," he said, maintaining a calmness that felt like a buoy in turbulent waters. "The medics are with him." Jake stood a bit apart, feeling as if he were in a movie, watching a scene unravel. He had held that envelope just moments ago, its weight pressing down on his conscience. The brother didn't know yet, but soon everything would change. "I need to see him now!" the man shouted, panicking. Ben motioned for the man to take a breath. "Please, just a moment. We're assessing his condition." The ambiance shifted again. A current of empathy mixed with anxiety thrummed in the air. The crowd felt closer now, their faces reflecting concern and dread. Jake wanted to help, but he didn't know how. He turned back to Benjamin, who kept one eye on the patient and another on the brother. Should I call that number?" Jake whispered, glancing at the back of the folded letter still stuck in his thoughts. Benjamin shook his head, briefly pulled from the scene. "Not yet. If he's stable, we'll notify the family first. They can decide how to handle this." The flustered brother's breathing was erratic, and each time he caught sight of the medics working frantically, he shook his head. No, not like this. Not after all he's been through." With courage that surprised him, Jake stepped closer to the brother, clutching his own emotions tightly. "What's your name?" he asked gently. Marcus Thompson," he blurted out, his entire body vibrating with anxiety. "Marcus," Jake continued, choosing his words carefully. I saw your brother just before the medics got to him. There was a note in his pocket. It said to contact you." Marcus's eyes widened, a glimmer of understanding mixed with dread. "A note? What did it say?" "He wanted you to know. He was thinking of you. He thought of you in his time of need." For a moment, Marcus collapsed inward, taking a shaky breath that appeared to shake the very foundation beneath him. "I should have been there. I was supposed to." "It's not your fault, Marcus," Jake insisted, squeezing his shoulder lightly. "You're here now. That's what matters." The brother's gaze shifted as he watched the paramedics load his brother into the ambulance, their faces a mask of determination. Each heartbeat felt like an eternity, and Jake understood the weight of that moment, the maybes, the unknowns, the fragile threads that tethered them to hope. With a sudden realization, Marcus turned to Jake, his expression suddenly fierce. "Can you tell me what the note said? Can you read it to me?" There was a brief pause, the weight of the moment palpable. Jake's throat tightened at the thought of revealing the contents, knowing it would burden Marcus with more than he could carry. I don't really know what it said. Just that he wanted you to know you mattered to him." They locked eyes, a connection formed in shared vulnerability. Suddenly a medic approached, eyes serious. Marcus bristled with tension. "Please don't give up on him." Jake felt an urgency again rippling through the air. This story wasn't just unfolding. It was demanding to be lived, raw and unfiltered. "I won't, I promise," Jake said, gripping Marcus's arm lightly. As the ambulance doors swung shut, the chaos outside fell into silence. The world felt unnaturally still. What happened next could change everything, and they all knew it. The siren wailed, slicing through the silence as it pulled away. In that moment, Jake wondered if this close brush with loss would lead to something greater. Would it bring them all together, or would it tear them apart? And as Jake turned back to find Benjamin, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. What would happen when the brother learned the full truth, and how would it change the path ahead for all of them? The mystery clawed at his insides, and he couldn't help but wonder. Could they weather the storm together? The siren faded in the distance, leaving a haunting quiet in its wake. Jake stood there, heart still racing, glancing from Marcus's anguished face to the empty street where the ambulance had vanished. Marcus was all raw energy and fear, a fragile figure lost in chaos. "Why did this happen?" Marcus muttered, his hands tugging at his hair like he was trying to squeeze the answers out. He was getting better. We were finally getting back to normal. Jake felt a heavy knot tightening in his stomach. Normal. What a loaded word. It struck him that everyone had their version of what normal looked like, and too often, life took a sledgehammer to it. "Things can change in an instant," Ben said softly, stepping closer to Marcus as if to pull him into a protective embrace. "But sometimes, they change so they can get better." Marcus stared, the wild energy starting to ebb just a bit as he searched for solace in Ben's words. Jake could see the struggle, the constant pull between hopelessness and the flickering flame of hope. Jake took a deep breath, stepping forward. "Have you tried calling any of his friends? Maybe they've heard something. Maybe they know what he was dealing with," he suggested. Marcus blinked, as if just coming back from a different world. "Yeah, I need to get in touch with them." He steadied himself, his hands wringing together as he pulled out his phone. The flickering screen illuminated his face, but his fingers trembled. As he looked up, determination filled his eyes. "I need to know. I can't just stand here. I need to find out what's going on." Jake admired that passion, a fire that, despite the despair, roared through the fog. He nodded, wanting to help somehow. "I can help you." "Really?" Marcus's tone softened, almost surprised. "Of course. We can figure this out, together." Ben's reassuring presence was still there, a silent anchor. Jake felt the weight of unspoken support around them. It was a moment thick with connection, where vulnerability met strength in the face of uncertainty. The crowd around them began to disperse, some still murmuring in concern. Jake could sense their collective breath held in the air, strangers brought together in this moment of urgency. Marcus dialed a number, clutching his phone tightly. Please pick up. Please, he muttered under his breath. Seconds stretched like hours as he waited, gnawing at his lip, the anxiety creeping back in. When a voice finally answered, Marcus's face turned ghostly pale, listening intently. Jake moved closer, eavesdropping unintentionally. What do you mean they're still working on him? Has anyone found out? His heart sank. He could see defeat creeping back into Marcus's posture, but he leaned in, placing a steady hand on his shoulder. You're doing great, Jake assured him quietly, grounding them both in this storm. I can't lose him, Marcus finally said, his voice breaking. The emotion poured out, raw and real, like the rain that began to patter against the pavement. He's everything to me. In that moment, Jake understood the true depth of family ties, the way they could both save and shatter a soul. It echoed through both their hearts in a bittersweet symphony. Marcus hung up. Frustration and hope painted across his features. They said, they're trying everything, but we have to wait. To see. Ben wrapped an arm around Marcus's shoulders, pulling him into a firm embrace. Together we'll face whatever comes, brother. We'll be here. We won't abandon you. Jake watched them, a spark in the air of unyielding resilience. It made him think about the ties that bind, about how important it was to fight for the people we care about. Marcus steadied himself, and Jake could see new determination in his eyes. I have to talk to those medics, find out if I can see him. As they moved toward the hospital entrance, a voice called from behind them. Hey, wait! Turning around, Jake spotted a woman rushing toward them, breathless and anxious. You were with him, weren't you? You saw him? Jake's heart raced again. More pieces were about to fall into place. What was her connection? Would her arrival change everything? The questions lingered in the air, heavy with possibility. Would this new twist help, or hurt their fragile hopes? The woman's eyes darted between Marcus and Ben, her voice laced with urgency. I was at the coffee shop when it happened. I saw him collapse. I tried to help, but they told us to step back. The paramedics. Did they take him? Was he conscious? Marcus ran a shaky hand through his hair, caught off guard by the stranger's concerned intensity. Yeah, they took him to the hospital. He's not doing well. They're working on him now. Working on him, she echoed, her face draining of color. It was like seeing an ice sculpture melting before your eyes, her determination crumbling into dread. I need to know what happened. You must have seen something. Anything. Jake could feel the heaviness weighing in the air. The woman was probably a friend, someone who had cared enough to be there. He felt her desperation wrapping around them, thick like fog. I wish I could say something comforting, he said quietly. But I don't know more than you do. We're just trying to figure it out. The woman glanced at Ben, nodding slightly. I'm Sarah. I knew him from work. He was always so lively. This isn't him. He is strong, Marcus interjected, squeezing his eyes shut as he tried to maintain some composure. I believe he's going to pull through. I have to get in there, Marcus added. Heat rose in his voice, ignited by fear and frustration. I need to see him. Maybe I can help, Sarah said, her urgency morphing into determination. I know the ER staff pretty well. I can talk to them. Marcus was already shaking his head. No, I need to be the one to ask. If I could just see him. Let's go together. It will look less desperate if there's more than one of us, Jake suggested, stepping into the conversation with a newfound energy, feeling the need to diffuse the emotions swirling around them. He turned to Sarah. Think you can give him some leverage? Right. Together. Her eyes lit with resolve as she stepped closer to Marcus. With one final glance backward at the lobby's flickering lights, they headed inside the hospital. The fluorescent lights buzzed as they navigated the sterile halls, the air bitter with antiseptic, a necessary companion to hope in this place. Upon reaching the waiting area outside the ER, Jake paused, his heart pulsing in time with Marcus's escalating anxiety. He tapped Marcus's shoulder. "Just remember, whatever happens, you're not alone. We're right here." "Thanks. Really." Marcus's voice choked. It was an instinctive bond, one they'd formed in that critical moment on the street. Minutes felt like hours. Waiting chairs squeaked beneath them as others rounded the corner, somber faces painted with worry and anxiety. Jake could see the nurses moving like clockwork, each one carrying pieces of souls. He felt an overwhelming urge to scream into the chaos, to release the tension clawing at his chest. Suddenly, a familiar figure appeared. Max, the brother of Marcus's partner, stormed through the waiting room. "Where is he? I was told he was... What's happening?" A crash of voices erupted, and Jake could only catch snippets. "Did he go into cardiac arrest? How is he stable? Where are the doctors?" Panic was climbing like a vine, wrapping itself around Marcus's throat. Through the emotional tempest swirling around them, Jake could sense that the next few minutes would reveal a truth that had been waiting just out of reach. As the tension thickened, Jake caught a glimpse of a doctor stepping toward them, serious and poised. All eyes turned in unison, the air electric with anticipation. Jake's heart raced. A new wave of energy surged through him, anticipating the weight of whatever news was about to follow. Would they face devastation or hope? The moment hung on the precipice, trembling on the edge of uncertainty, and Jake realized that every heartbeat could change everything. In that charged silence, he could only think, what if this moment would redefine their lives forever? The doctor reached them, a calm presence amidst the storm of emotions swirling around the waiting area. His crisp white coat flared slightly as he stepped forward, and for a heartbeat, the world around them narrowed to just him and the precarious thread of hope hanging in the air. Jake felt a shiver run down his spine. "Are you family?" the doctor asked, his voice steady but not without gravity. Marcus barely managed to nod, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. "I'm his partner. What's going on? How is he?" The doctor took a breath, his eyes scanning Marcus's anxious face, then flickering to the others gathered closely behind. "We're doing everything we can. He's stable now, but it was touch and go for a while. He had a cardiac arrest in the coffee shop." Jake's heart sank at the words. He exchanged a look with Sarah. Her eyes were wide, shimmering with fear. "Cardiac arrest? How?" Marcus's voice trembled, caught between terror and a flicker of hope. Was it his heart condition? "It seems it was. A pre-existing condition we hadn't been aware of." The doctor's tone was serious, but there was a hint of softness beneath. "We've stabilized him for now, but we need to monitor him closely. The next few hours are critical." Sarah stepped forward. "Can we see him? Visiting hours are strict, but given the circumstances, I will allow a brief visit," the doctor replied, his eyes flickering to Marcus again. "Just remember, he may be disoriented when he wakes up. You need to be gentle with him." Marcus nodded, fighting back tears, while Jake felt a strange mix of relief and anxiety settle in his chest. They would see him. There would be a chance to reassure him, to remind him he wasn't alone in this fight. As they walked toward the intensive care unit, the corridor felt long and cold. Each click of their footsteps echoed, amplifying the growing tension among them. Marcus walked slightly ahead, lost in thought, while Sarah and Jake exchanged glances filled with unspoken worries. The moment they entered the room, Jake's heart ached at the sight before them. The sterile white sheets contrasted sharply with Marcus, who lay still, connected to machines that beeped harmoniously, monitoring life signs. The bandages on his arms where the IVs were inserted seemed an all-too-fragile reminder of how delicate life could be. Marcus approached the bed first, his face pale and drawn. He gently touched Marcus's hand, holding it as if he feared it might slip away. "Hey, it's me. I'm here," he whispered, voice trembling. For a moment, nothing happened. The machines continued their steady rhythm, punctuating the silence like a heartbeat. "Can he hear us?" Sarah asked softly, stepping closer, her hand hovering near her lips. "I hope so," Jake replied. "He needs to know we're all here." Just then, a faint flutter of eyelids broke the stillness. Marcus stirred slightly, a faint frown crossing his brow. Slowly, his eyes cracked open, revealing confusion and fatigue. "Marcus, it's okay. You're safe," Marcus murmured, his voice steady despite everything. The seconds dragged on as Marcus blinked, attempting to focus on their faces, slowly registering their presence. But the moment of clarity was tinged with distress. A faint memory of panic flashed across his expression before his eyes slipped closed again. "Stay with us," Marcus urged, tightening his grip. As Marcus hovered between consciousness and the unknown, Jake felt a chilling wave wash over him. What if this was the start of something even more troubling? The bond they shared was frail, yet fierce, and now it felt more vital than ever. In the flickering light, Jake suddenly grasped something profound. It was in times like these that they truly learned the strength of their bonds, how fragile life is, and how deep love runs beneath the surface. But what would it take to pull him back completely into the world? Would their encouragement be enough to ignite that spark of life again? As the tension in the room tightened like a bowstring, they all surrounded Marcus's bedside, unsure of what the next moment would bring. Each breath was both a gift and a prayer, just like the lingering hope that gnawed at their hearts, waiting for a sign, a flicker of recognition, a glimpse of the life they all wanted back. The quiet hum of the machines filled the room, an echo of hope tethered to each beep and whir. Jake stood there, heart in his throat, watching Marcus navigate the fragile line between consciousness and the depths of uncertainty. "Come on, buddy," Marcus urged softly, his eyes brimming with determination and hope. "You've fought through so much. You can do this. We're all right here with you." Jake felt a swell of warmth at Marcus's side. He could see the connection they had, the deep bond born from shared struggle. A bond that had risen from the ashes of uncertainty to stand resilient in the face of adversity. And suddenly, there it was, a flicker in Marcus's eyes. As they glimmered open again, confusion replaced by a spark of recognition that gave everyone hope. What happened? The voice was thin and raspy, but it was there. Marcus grasped his hand tighter, tears welling in his eyes. "You collapsed, but you're safe now. Everyone's here for you." The moment hung like delicate glass, the air thick with emotion. Sarah moved closer, her own vulnerability raw. "We saw you, and we learned about your struggles. You're stronger than your challenges." Marcus blinked, breathing heavily. "Sarah, His gaze flitted between them, searching for clarity, his brow furrowing like he was grappling with a shadow. "Just breathe, all right?" Jake replied gently, stepping forward with a soft smile. "It's okay. One breath at a time. We've got you." Sensing their unyielding support, a slow smile broke through the confusion shadowing Marcus's face. "You guys, I didn't think—" But Jake interrupted, a sudden rush of inspiration igniting within him. "You are worth everything, Marcus. We saw how you cared for others. You brought light to so many lives. And now, it's your turn to be carried. By us." With a small nod of acknowledgement, Marcus's eyes glistened brighter. It was a moment of pure human connection, a commitment drawn from the depths of personal battles shared. "I need to talk to my brother," he murmured unexpectedly, one frail hand reaching for a nearby notepad. "He needs to know. I don't want to be a burden. I want to fight." Jake leaned in, electrified by determination. You're not a burden. Never think that. Just focus on getting well. We will do this together. As Marcus scrawled a message, the pen poised clumsily in his grip. A sense of calm enveloped the room. It became evident that Marcus wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was driven to connect deeper, emerging from a place of vulnerability into a world of newfound energy. In that moment, they understood that life often colored outside the lines of expectation. When he finished writing, Jake smiled, feeling a swell of pride. You did it. Let me share too, Sarah volunteered, gathering her thoughts courageously. We'll get through this. You have us now. Just as you were there to lend an understanding hand to others, we are here to stand by you. We're family now, Marcus. A real family, Jake continued, and we will keep fighting together, one step at a time. As the smiles ignited hope in their eyes, they shared the warmth of a beautiful understanding. Marcus, steadying his breath, glanced at each of them. A quiet acknowledgement of love and acceptance. I've always believed in the power of community, but I've never truly lived it. I'm so grateful for all of you. The air in the room seemed lighter, infused with promise and support. In the days that followed, each member of that circle rallied and fought by Marcus's side, sharing meals, reading his notes, and laughter-filled stories of their lives. The bond deepened each moment, amplifying into a united front of resilience. Eventually, when Marcus was well enough to be released from the hospital, he exited those stark white walls, not just with his health restored, but with an entire new family surrounding him. Friends who had morphed into an unwavering support system, one that would endure through thick and thin. Jake stood by him, heart swelling with pride. We've made it together. Yes, and there's so much more ahead, Marcus said brightly. I know I'm not alone in this battle anymore, and I want to give back, help others, just as you guys helped me. Together, they walked toward the distant horizon, promising to break barriers and redefine destinies, transforming the chasms that once separated their lives into bridges of compassion, understanding, and strength. Amidst the laughter and shared stories, they recognized that each of them had turned their struggles into sources of strength. Together, they would forge a path of hope, a tale of resilience that transformed them all. Life, marked with unpredictability, now vibrated with purpose and love, a symphony of connection stronger than any challenge thrown their way. This was the beginning of something incredible. A community forged not only from shared adversity, but from the belief that even amidst chaos, true strength lies in unity. And in that moment, bound together, they breathed light into the next chapter of their lives, promising to uphold each other through every storm. Every sweet, lingering moment set against the backdrop of ordinary days, intertwined with extraordinary transformations. So take a moment to reflect, friends. In the silence between our heartbeats lies the power of choices, the threads connecting us to one another. If you found inspiration in this story, there's a very real world out there waiting for you. You need to subscribe now and join us on this incredible journey. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure these amazing transformations reach even more hearts. Comment your reactions and share your feelings about this powerful ending. And don't wait, not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who truly need to see this transformation. Let's spread the love and hope far and wide.